So millions of people have been told that type 2 is something that they're just going to have to manage for the rest of their lives. They're, given this diagnosis, handed some pills, and they're monitored, they have all the restrictions. But today we want to talk to you a little bit about how that life sentence, we'll say, could be wrong. Today, Dr. Saunders is actually going to share with us science, not the marketing. He's actually going to share science with you, the science behind a real protocol, a real practice that he works with his patients. It's a doctor-backed plan that has helped many, many people get off the medications or not have to take the medications. They're able to normalize their blood sugar and reclaim their health. So stick around and we're going to be talking about that. Before we get into it, though, I want to remind you that our webinars are brought to you for educational purposes only. They're not intended to be a substitute for your personal medical advice or your doctor. So please remember that this is not a substitute for medical advice or diagnosis or treatment. So always seek the advice of your own medical advisor, a physician, or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have after, anything you've heard or seen today. All right, Dr. Saunders, let's get going. I want to start with something bold. So a lot of our viewers have been told that they've got type 2. And I'm sure they've been told that, yeah, you just need to live with it. You can manage it. It's a very manageable thing. So I know that you disagree with saying that it's something they're going to have for their lifetime. And I know you've talked a lot about reversal. So tell us exactly what the science says about reversal and what does that actually mean for somebody who's sitting on the other side of the screen listening to this today?
Okay, think about this. You didn't use the word cure. It used to be when you went to a doctor, you went to a doctor to cure your illness. You went to a doctor they didn't even use reversal. Reversal's like a euphemism for cure, right? You had it, now you don't have it. That used to be called cure. Now you can't use that word anymore. Why not? Because it's a terrible business model. That's why. So think of the business model. If you cure everybody, then you're out of business. But if you're treating everybody for life, then it equates to about $16,000 per patient with diabetes that you have. That's your annual, that $16,000 per year per patient with diabetes. So, if you have 100 patients with diabetes, that's $160,000 a year just for your diabetes patients, and that's not a lot of them, right? So it amounts to a lot. It's a business model. So the business model says you can't cure it. And we're told that specifically. And any doctor who says, like online or publicly says, I can cure your illness, they will have their license revoked. They'll be out of business pretty soon, because nobody is allowed to say it. So we use the word reverse. Okay, let's reverse your diabetes. What is that? Is that a real thing? Well, absolutely, it's a real thing. We've had plenty of people on this show come in and say, "Hey, I did the program and I no longer have diabetes," or my hemoglobin A1C was 9.0 and now it's 5.3, and it's like, okay, you no longer have diabetes. What does that mean? Well, you're cured, right? That's what it means. So, can you cure it? Absolutely. Can you reverse it? Absolutely. And why are doctors saying it's not reversible? Because it's not if you do what they tell you to do. So if you're taking medications, it's not reversible. Medications only make it worse. Some medications only make it worse. Most of medications. Why? Well, all they're finding out. Well, none they're finding out. They're actually having lawsuits now against the people making the GLP-1. The Wegovy, Ozempic people, because what's really happening is when they go off it, they're worse. They're worse off. And they gain the weight back faster and they have their diabetes is worse. They are not better off. And it quits working after a year. So those injections, that's not an answer. But they're still selling them to the tunes of billions of dollars a year. So, um, if you actually fix the problem, you have a terrible business model. And that's where the big thing comes in. So all the drugs that you're talking about are just things that maintain. They It's like putting a Band-Aid over a cancer. Oh, I got a skin cancer. Put a Band-Aid up. No, just can't see the cancer. Must not be there. That's what the practice of medicine is really all about. Is how do we keep treating people without actually fixing the problem? That's really what we're taught in medical school. Very specifically, don't ever use the word cure, and make sure that we were specifically told, make sure that at the end of every note is the follow-up. When are you coming back? So that you keep people coming back. That's the process. So the answer is yes, it's reversible. Yeah, it's fixable. We do it all the time.
Is there a cutoff? Like if someone's had diabetes for 15 or 20 years, can they still reverse it? Or is it just like at the beginning?
No, no, that's the cool thing about diabetes, as opposed to like Alzheimer's. Like if you wait too long, too late. You're not going to get your brain function back. But diabetes is, gosh, I just recently had somebody who's had it for over 20 years and has been on medications for that long. And he pretty much reversed it. He's pretty much, his hemoglobin A1C is normal now. Well, not normal. It's 6.8. He's pre-diabetic at this point, but it's only been a few months. So, yeah, yeah. Even after 20 years, it's reversible.
It's like a walking miracle. I love hearing those kind of stories.
For sure. So tell us a little bit what's happening in the body when somebody reverses. So when the blood sugar normalizes and A1, C comes down, what is physically changed in their body?
Um, what's going on is the cells, every cell needs energy, and the primary source of energy is glucose, sugar, right? So uh, glucose gets into the cell, and the cell has to convert that to ATP. So the glucose itself is not energy. The all of the enzymes and mechanisms and everything in your body can't use sugar for energy. It has to go into the mitochondria, which are little bacteria that live inside your cells, and they're the ones that convert the sugar into ATP, which is the actual energy that the cell uses. So this conversion process has to happen. So the glucose is going into the cell, and when there's too much glucose in the cell, it starts making a starch called glycogen, where it just puts a whole bunch of glucose molecules together, and forms this like starch inside the cell. And then it fills up and fills up and fills up. And when it gets too much, when it's like full up, like, okay, we're full of sugar here, the nucleus says, okay, shut down the the they're called insulin receptors. Shut down the ports or the doors that allow the glucose in. So they shut them all, they lock all the doors so glucose can't get in anymore. Well, they don't take them all out. There's always few, but there's thousands of them normally, and now there's only a couple hundred, so like 1/10 as much. So then, because they're full and they only have a few receptors, they're bringing a little bit in, and then the insulin level starts going up because you have very few insulin receptors that unlock the doors to bring the glucose into the cells. So the glucose goes up, then the insulin goes up, and then the glucose goes up and the insulin goes up. And that happens over a long period of time. So what's actually happening as people are getting better is they have drained their cells of all that glycogen. They have no more sugar in their cells. So the nucleus says, hey, we better make some more receptors. So it makes more receptors, insulin receptors. So then you need less insulin. So then the insulin goes down, the blood sugar's going into the cells, so it doesn't stay in the blood anymore. And so your blood sugar goes down, and everybody's happy, and we get world peace.
Okay, so you just mentioned about getting the cells empty. A lot of people talk about doing that through diet, losing weight. Are there other things that should be put in their toolkits to actually help move the needle on the blood sugar?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so um, one of the big things is you have to use up the glycogen, and using up the glycogen requires that you exercise. Exercise is a big thing. Now, it doesn't require you, if you were fasting and didn't eat anything and you were sitting around all day, you would use up just in the process of living, you would use up that glycogen. But as long as you're eating anything, then it's going to require that you go out and use up the glycogen, the glucose that's stored in your muscles. There's also things to help the receptors work better. Remember that there's fewer receptors around, and often people have deficiencies where they're not efficiently bringing the sugar into the cells, and so the cells can be starving in some cases, especially brain cells, where they're not getting enough energy because the receptors aren't working efficiently. In that case, you need things like nutrients, like chromium, vanadium, selenium. Vitamin D is a big one. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. And there's good reason for that. Human beings used to live for thousands of years, lived outdoors, and they did stuff outdoors in the sunshine, and they would make plenty of vitamin D. Every single animal, every mammal, it has to have vitamin D. And even birds have to have vitamin D. And they don't eat it. It's not found in food. They have to make it, and they have to make it from sunshine. One of the things I was reading. So how does a bird get vitamin D? How's a chicken? A chicken's run out completely covered with feathers, right? So how is it going to get its vitamin D? The legs. It actually secretes it's called a dihydrocholesterol into on the legs, and then the sunshine hitting the legs makes vitamin D, and that's enough for the chicken. For sheep, it's a little different. Their sweat in their fur is lanolin. And then they lick their fur and they get the vitamin D off of that. So that's a process of making it and then taking it in orally. People who live in northern climates where there isn't a lot of sunshine to make vitamin D, have always supplemented vitamin D by eating like fish livers, and cod liver oil is a supply of vitamin D. So if you aren't in the sunshine, you should supplement. We have CinnaChroma, and we've essentially gone through all of those. What are the essential nutrients that a person needs in order to use their blood sugar well? And so we put them all in there, and including vitamin D. And none of them are just the little tiny amounts that you find in all the other ones that have like 27 different nutrients in there, and there's little tiny amounts of each one. No, this is like 5,000 units of vitamin D. That's all you need. 200 micrograms of chromium. It's all you need. So it's not a fairy dusting. This is like the real thing, the real amount that you need. Exercise, get the right nutrients, and then of course you already mentioned the diet.
Or can you, or Jody, we're going to ask too. I was like, maybe we should cover some of the diet principles before we move on. For people who are new, we talk a lot about diet, but what is the diet they should follow in order to regulate their blood sugar?
Okay, think about it. Think about what you want to accomplish. You go, okay, so I have like 60 trillion cells that are full up completely with sugar. The glucose is full. What am I going to do if I'm full of sugar and I'm now toxic on glucose? What am I going to do? Well, if you're toxic on lead, then you quit eating lead, right? If you're toxic on water, quit drinking water. If you're toxic on sugar, quit eating sugar. And so that's all it is. I mean, you go to the diabetes solution kit, and it is the easy. It's not the only way, but it's the easiest way. It's a simple way of taking out all of the things that are causing the toxicity, and allowing your body to use up the glucose to increase the number of insulin receptors, to then be able to bring glucose into the cells again. And that's all a process that happens over time. But that's the diet is essentially a ketogenic diet. And so you're making ketones ideally. We don't actually do ketogenic. In other words, you're not measuring your ketone levels and all that. But limiting the amount of glucose that you take in every day so that you can use up what's there and detox. So it's a detox.
Excellent. Okay, so I dropped the link to the diabetes solution kit in the chat. I think I dropped the link for the digital version along with a discount code. The diabetes solution kit is not expensive. I think the digital version is like 20 bucks. So if you want, and then you could use that discount code for 25% off. So it really walks you through each step and helps you with your diet. Like, where do I even start? Okay, so you were talking about exercise. And I also want to let people know we are actually going to have a webinar about exercise coming up in a couple weeks because I know that a lot of us maybe have back pain or our flexibility isn't what it used to be. Our bodies might be getting older. And so I know sometimes exercise is a challenge. I know it is for me because sometimes I'm like, I can't do what I used to. And so it's a struggle sometimes. So we are going to actually be covering that topic. I think it's on the 14th. I'll double check the date. So that's coming up. But what I wanted to ask, Dr. Saunders, is there a specific time of the day that would help someone with blood sugar, like a time they should exercise in, correspondence like with eating, so is there a good time of the day that is more beneficial than others? And what kind of exercise are we talking?
Yeah. Okay. Albert Einstein said, nothing happens until something moves. So you got to move. And let's start out with um, any possible way you move is good. Any time you move is good. But your question is a good question. So, is there a better time to work out, for example? Morning tends to be a better time to work out. And in fact, if you have type 2 and you're working out before you eat, then what happens is your muscles will use up more glycogen, and they will open up their ability to bring in glucose. Where muscles, when you're working out, don't have to have insulin to bring in glucose. So you can lower your insulin need by exercising before you eat in the morning. That's one way of looking at it. That's a good way of doing that. Another thing is along those same lines, your muscles bring in glucose whenever they're exercising and don't need insulin. And that's the key is they don't need insulin. So if you eat and then right after you eat, you go for a walk. And I'm not talking about you have to go out and run a marathon and, kill yourself on the treadmill or whatever. But if you do some kind of exercise, walking is really good because you're using the big muscles in your body, your thigh muscles, your leg muscles, and you go for a walk afterward, it will tend to keep your blood sugar on a more stable level. And because it'll take the spikes out of your blood sugar. And that helps you to be less insulin resistant. So you have better insulin sensitivity by working out at those times specifically. Working out in the evening is not the best, but anytime you can work out is great. Put it that way. But those times are better. Okay, and then you also asked about the type of exercise. Um, Using your large muscles is important. So if you're just walking, do hills. Just walk up and down hills, and that's a great way to use those strong muscles in your legs and strengthen them to some extent, but also to take up the glucose into them. Um, an ideal kind of exercise would be HIIT, high intensity interval training. When I was in high school, it was called wind sprints, and we hated them. But you know what? If you think about it, it's really not bad. You sprint all out for 10 seconds. It's not like a long time, 10 seconds. And then you walk casually for 30 seconds. And then you sprint for 10 seconds. And then you casually walk for 30 seconds. And you do that 15 minutes, 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. It's really simple, really easy. Why? Well, the reason that has benefit over just going for a walk or even just going for a run is it isn't until you reach your limit, when you come to the limit, that's when your body starts saying, "Oh, we need to make changes. We need to fix this. We've reached our limit. We need to extend our abilities." And so that increases your mitochondria, your ability to make energy. But here's what's really cool about it. Like, let's say you are sprinting, and it doesn't have to be running, sprinting. If you were on a treadmill and you were running, if you were on a rowing machine and you're pulling as hard as you can for 10 seconds, it doesn't matter exactly what the exercise is because the turning on of the energy systems in your body, the mitochondria, happens all over, even though you're only using one muscle group. So let's say you're just sprinting. Your energy increases ability in all your muscles, even the muscles you aren't specifically using, and especially in your brain. And so you get better brain function because you're running and using your leg muscles. You get more mitochondria in your brain. So, everything works better when you do that, when you reach that limit and you kind of just push the limit a little bit. Because if you're not reaching your limit, then eventually you're losing ability until you come to your limit. And then you go, well, I can't do what I used to do. And so then you do less, and then you're losing that ability. And then you do less, and you're losing. And so you're gradually declining. And so when you reach your limit, you at least won't get worse. You won't decline. You'll at least stay the same. If you push a little farther, harder than you can. So I'll give you an example. So I do wind sprints, the HIIT, and I run. And so I started sprinting 10 seconds. And then walking for 30 seconds. And then I went to 15 seconds, and then I went to 20 seconds. So my sprint got longer, and I'm able to do more than when I first started. So my abilities increased. That's the kinds of exercise that really work.
Did you say 15 minutes a day?
15 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
And that's 15 minutes is very doable.
Yeah, anybody can take 15 minutes out to exercise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about inflammation. It's such the buzzword these days. A lot of people associate inflammation with aches and pains, but how does inflammation can you explain the connection between inflammation and how it might make diabetes worse, and then what our webinar attendees can do to help reduce inflammation?
That is a really good question. Definitely inflammation makes insulin resistance. You get more insulin resistance because of the inflammatory mediators that bring out the inflammation. So inflammation, it's red, hot, swollen, tender. You have pain. A lot of people have pain. and they create more inflammation. And these inflammatory mediators block the insulin receptors, and so you are more insulin resistant with these with inflammatory mediators with inflammation. And then you also ask, well, what can you do about it? That is a really interesting question, because one thing has been shown, anti-inflammatory has been shown to actually improve blood sugar, blood glucose in people with type 2 diabetes, and that is fish oil, omega-3s. So, we have a really good omega-3 supplement that can. I think that anybody with diabetes should be taking it anyway, and anybody with inflammation should be taking it anyway, because the omega-3 suppresses inflammation. Omega-6 causes inflammation. Omega-3 suppresses it, and if you balance them, then you're going to have less inflammation, and it improves blood sugar.
Excellent. We will make sure we drop the link to the omega in the chat as well. All right, so I want to get to some of our viewer questions. We've got some really good ones coming in here. So Joyce, we're kind of going back to diet. So Joyce says, so does reversal then mean that now I can go back to eating what and when I want?
Of course, if you want to go back to being diabetic. No, so the idea being that once you've reversed it, once you no longer have it, could it come back? Well, of course, if you fill up those cells, those cells, if you fill them up completely with glucose again, they're going to shut off all the insulin receptors, and you're going to be insulin resistant, and you're going to have all the problems back again. Yeah, and I've had a lot of people do that, people that have reversed their process. I give them essentially the diabetes solution kit and have them do that on their own. They get better, their insulin's better, their hemoglobin A1C comes back normal, and they're like, good, now I can eat whatever I want. And then they go back to eating junk food. And of course, they start getting insulin resistant again.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right. And then we have a follow-up question from Roberta. Roberta's confused about whether you to exercise before or after breakfast.
The reason if you're at an empty stomach or need to muscles, need for.
Uh-oh, I think we're having issues with Dr. Saunders' internet.
Oh no.
Oh, there, now you're back. Okay, say that again. You were all very robotic for that whole answer. Can you clarify it again for us? Oh, and now he's gone. He'll be back. Oh, there he is.
I'm back.
Okay. All right. Answer that one for us again. Before breakfast or not? Exercise. Clarify
Okay,
that.
so before breakfast is better because when you're exercising, your muscles don't require insulin to bring the glucose into the cells, so your insulin need drops down. So it's actually better. So your like heavy exercise, whatever your workout is on an empty stomach. And then after a meal, going for a walk or doing some light exercise is a good idea.
All right, I'm going to ask this question from Lori. She might have posted it on Facebook earlier. Can I take CinnaChroma and D3K2? I read the max of vitamin D is 250.
Yeah, 250 would be micrograms. 250 micrograms is 10,000 units. And that's pretty much on the higher side of the dose. It's not a max. I have people taking 50,000 units a day, and they talk about toxicity. Toxicity on vitamin D is not vitamin D toxicity. It's absorbing a lot of calcium and having hypercalcemia, so your calcium levels go up. And all you need to do is add K2 and it'll take the calcium out of your blood and put it in your bones. So by itself, there's really no problem with toxicity. So your question of can I take CinnaChroma and D3K2? Sure. Your D3K2 is probably going to be less than 5,000 units or less, or around 125 micrograms. So that'll be fine. That's not a problem. I just put somebody today on 10,000 or 250 micrograms of D3.
Okay. Here is a question that came in ahead of time. All right, it's from Sonia. And Sonia says, back in 2005, I was misdiagnosed with type 2 based solely on an HbA1c reading without any fasting or glucose tolerance tests and was monitored for a year and ultimately confirmed I was not diabetic, noting that my sickle cell trait can lead to false readings. So it looks like Sonia was discharged by that specialist 21 years ago and never took any diabetic medication, but her current medical charts still label the blood work as diabetic. My glucose readings typically range from 98 to 190 to 128, depending upon the time of the day. H1C has occasionally been as high as 8. I don't have any symptoms of the condition and currently use some of the Barton supplements as precaution, but as I get older, this discrepancy in my records is causing me some anxiety. So do you have any suggestions or insights for someone in my specific situation, particularly with that inaccurate reading with sickle cell trait and how to clarify my chart status when it conflicts with the specialist findings?
Yeah, that's an issue. So pay no attention to the chart. That would be a really good way to look at it. Because often diagnoses are used for other purposes, like okay, in order to bill the insurance for this test, we need to have this diagnosis, and so they'll have to put the diagnosis on so that they can test you for that. So then you're just stuck with it forever, and they just put it in your chart, and so the next person comes and, oh, I see diabetes, okay, and the next person, diabetes, I see that, and it stays in there for 40 years or whatever. So I don't know. I would be just less worried about the what's in the chart and really concentrate on, okay, what are the issues here? Is there an issue like with a hemoglobin A1C of 8? Well, why is that? Well, because your hemoglobin is different. That's why. That's what the sickle cell trait is. And so you have relatively more glucose attaching uh, to your to your hemoglobin, so it looks like you have diabetes when clearly your blood sugars are normal. So just don't do a hemoglobin A1C. And I don't know if you understand it. Most doctors aren't going to understand it, so you may have to explain it to them and say, "Look, I have sickle cell trait. My sickle cells take in more glucose." So the hemoglobin A1C is always elevated, but I'm measuring my blood sugars and they're normal.
Yes, and I would also think, wouldn't it be important to have a family member or somebody who, that you trust with your care as well, be aware of that too. I know, like, if I was thinking about my parents, it would be important for me to know that because sometimes I have to, help them with their medical appointments and things. So,
Yeah, always good to provide context to the doctors.
mhm.
We have a couple questions about omega, so I'm going to lump them together. What makes our fish oil or omega a really good one? How long does it last? Like, how long is it good for? And can algae omega work as well as fish oil?
Oh, yeah, okay. So uh so the all fish oils are not the same. And what you want from the fish oil is you want omega-3. And so the concentrated omega-3 formulas, and so our formula has a concentrated omega-3 formula where you're getting just the omega-3, because that's the supplement part. You can get oil from anywhere. And some people are buying omega-3, 6, 9, essential fatty acids. And they think, well, I'm supplementing the essential fatty acids. But what they don't know is that the omega-6 is actually causing inflammation. So you don't want that. You can get omega-6 in every single oil. But omega-3 is hard to get. And that's the problem. There's only three sources of omega-3 more than omega-6. People think they can take walnuts and get omega-3. Yeah, you're getting a little bit of omega-3, but you have 4 times more omega-6. The only ones that have more omega-3 than omega-6 is fish oil, um, flaxseed oil, chia seed. So flax seeds, chia seeds, fish, but then algae. So algae oil is that, yes, that's a good source of omega-3. Generally, it's not as potent. You don't have as much of the omega-3 per gram. But if you take more of it, then you can get the amount of omega-3 that you want. So you want about 3 grams of omega-3 a day. And that makes it pretty easy. So the reason ours is good because it's really easy. You can take 3 capsules and you're getting about 3 grams a day.
Okay, great. All right, so Allison is wanting to know, says, my doctor told me to take Akkermansia,
Yeah.
which would help me to assimilate the carbs better. What do you think about this product?
Akkermansia is a bacteria that you take for the gut. It's for your large intestine, and it's really important for decreasing inflammation. So, what your doctor is telling you is not wrong, it's just not direct, it's secondary. So the Akkermansia does not like take in glucose or anything. What it does is lowers inflammation in the intestines so that you absorb things better. And also with the lower inflammation, like we were just talking about with the fish oil, you could be more efficient at using the glucose that you have. So yeah, Akkermansia is fine. I test people. So just putting somebody on Akkermansia or saying everybody should take it wouldn't necessarily be the case. I think that would be one of the things where you do a stool test, like a gut, or yeah, there's all kinds of stool tests. Anyway, so do a stool test that tells you what bacteria you have in there. I usually do a GI map or the Genova stool. Um, uh, and what they do is they tell you how much relative amount of Akkermansia that you have. And if you're low, and I've seen people that are low, supplementing is a good idea.
All right, Stephen asks a question that I wanted to ask. So when you talked about exercise and using your big muscles in your legs, he wants to know, is going up and down a lot of stairs good exercise?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, up and down stairs is great exercise. And unlike what you're often told, going up and down stairs is actually really good for your knees too. People say, "Oh, it's hard on the knees." Well, if you have arthritis, it's painful for your knees because you're using your knees more. But if you're using it more, you're also going to repair it better. So, yeah. So if you don't have arthritis, then it helps you repair ultimately.
All right, thank you. All right, so this question came in the webinar or in the Facebook community from Chris. I think Chris is here today. So Chris is concerned about calcium. Chris says, I've been to some webinars and I'm trying to get calcium from my coronary artery and mitral valve. I would like to talk about calcium. I don't want to have surgery. I do take the heart health support and the fiber powder, among many other herbs. I'm 3 years on this fight, and I'm only on Repatha. So, any advice to Chris about calcium?
Okay, calcium deposits. That's the issue here,
I
right?
think so.
Yeah. So calcium deposits on the the like the
Coronary artery and the
Valve.
mitral valve. Yeah, the
Oh,
valve.
coronary artery and mitral valve. Oh, okay. So coronary calcium score it kind of tells you that okay, so the coronary calcium score has nothing to do with cholesterol or anything like that. It is clots. When clots form on arterial walls and then they organize forming scar tissue essentially. The scar tissue has calcium deposits in it. That's what it does. That's what all of it does anywhere. So then they measure the coronary calcium score and they say, oh, you have a lot of calcium deposits in your arteries. And then therefore you should be on Repatha. Well, okay, Repatha is an injection, and what it does is it blocks something called a PSK9 uh, inhibitor, and that allows your liver to bring the LDL out of circulation and use the LDL to make like bile acids so you can solubilize your fats when you eat fat. Um, so, um, and Repatha is okay as far as drugs go, but it's not a forever thing because it's an injection of an antibody, and you're going to eventually make antibodies against that antibody, and so it's not going to work anymore. So, a better way to look at it is to ask, why do you have clots? And how do I prevent clots from happening? So, part of what we've done in the Healthy Heart Solution Kit is to look at why clotting happens and what to do about it. And one really important thing is we're back to omega-3s. You have to have a balance of omega-3 and omega-6 because if you have inflammation with a lot of omega-6, you're going to make more clots. And so if you balance them, it prevents you from making clots. It doesn't thin your blood. People go, oh, that's a blood thinner. I'm going to bleed out. No, it doesn't stop you from making clots where you have damaged blood vessels. It just stops you from making clots in your arteries. But repairing the blood vessels, making sure you're not making clots, um, and keeping you from making clots in your arteries, and then allowing your body to dissolve the clots. So, some people, because they test for this and they look for, oh, I have a clotting issue and I make clots easily. So they take something like a nattokinase or lumbrokinase that is an enzyme that dissolves clots. And so you can actually take that orally and dissolve the clots in your arteries.
Good news for you. All right. Anonymous says, best way to control blood sugar level at breakfast with protein rich or good fats diet?
Okay. I have a theory about this, and I just want to let you know that, I've in doing research, I just think that getting enough protein is important, and getting a large amount of protein at one meal a day is important. And so I think breakfast should be a high protein meal, and the reason why breakfast is because that's when you have the with high protein you'll make mTOR. mTOR is what allows you to use that protein to build muscle, to build your body up. So I think like one meal that has high protein and even like supplementing the protein. So if you don't like, eggs for breakfast and you're eating some, I don't know, oatmeal or something like that, there's not a lot of protein in oatmeal. So you can add milk and it's going to have some. And then on top of that, even add another 20 grams of whey protein is helpful. Or take a scoop of collagen peptides. Collagen peptides helps you build your connective tissue in your body. And so I think if you have one meal that has a lot of protein, I think it should be breakfast. And that's, yeah.
Okay. All right, so another question here in the Q&A about magnesium. What's the best way to measure the magnesium level in the body and expedite or maintain good levels nutritionally? How often should magnesium spray be used efficiently and to which areas for maximum absorption? So I'm guessing this person has used our magnesium spray or a magnesium spray.
Yeah. Okay, so magnesium spray, if you spray it on the thinner areas of skin, it's absorbed better. Not a lot of it is absorbed, a small amount, so you spray it all over. It's not something that you just put on like a cream that you're hormone creams like that, where you just put a little bit on. You spray it all over, and what that does is allows it to gradually be absorbed. And that's really for people that don't get enough magnesium in their diet. And some people, when they take magnesium, they get bowel problems like diarrhea and stuff. So, uh, there are other ways of doing it. So how to measure it? I measure the red blood cell magnesium, RBC magnesium it's called. And that should be adequate because that's the intracellular. So that's the amount of magnesium inside the cell, and that's actually more helpful to know that than what's outside the cell. So what's in the serum magnesium is going to be kept pretty normal by your kidneys, whether you're depleted or not. And so the RBC magnesium tells you better whether you're depleted.
Now, here's something interesting. I'm not sure what the question is, but this is what it says. I read that berberine and antidepressants, fluoxetine, together. Is that true? I think, should they be taken together or they work together?
Huh. Berberine
And
and,
antidepressants.
and fluoxetine. Gosh, I don't know of any drug interactions for them. And I don't know if they should not be taken together, either. I don't know.
All right.
Okay. All right, we've got a testimonial put in here by Mary. Mary wants to thank you, Dr. Saunders, for donating your valuable time. Mary says, through your diabetes solution kit, I went from A1C of 5.7 to 5.3 in about 4 months. Now, 2 years later, I'm usually around 5.1 or 2. And now I eat carbohydrates, usually only unrefined in moderate amounts. I have learned so much. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Phil wants to know if the omega-3 is good, if our omega-3 is good for dry eye symptoms.
It might be. It might be. That is one of the possible treatments for dry eyes is omega-3. And absolutely, changing that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio can help that. Yeah.
All right, one last real question. Can I drink black coffee during a 3-day fast?
Um, uh, yes. Yes. There's been some research on that, and the evidence shows it doesn't break the fast. And yeah, so yeah, that'd be fine. Okay, so the berberine fluoxetine, can they be taken together? So I just looked it up on my AI, and it says berberine can slow fluoxetine clearance. They both use the same um, excretion method, or the liver enzymes that are needed is the same one, and so berberine can increase more than fluoxetine. So can they be taken together? Yes, but if they are taken together, I would not take the full amount of berberine, 1,500. I would take it once a day instead of twice a day.
Would that be for every antidepressant or just that one?
It would just be fluoxetine.
Okay.
All right. So for someone who has struggled for years and is just maybe looking to start today to try and reverse their type 2,
Mm.
what would be the single most important first step that you would recommend if they could only do one thing this week? What do you think they should do? What's like the biggest needle mover?
I think the key there is this is a person who's been struggling for a long time. I would start with diet. I would just get the diabetes solution kit and go to page 1 and just do that one thing, read through it. Uh, uh, when I did it, somebody asked me, it was like a couple of years ago, somebody asked, have you ever done it? And I'm like, no, I haven't. I didn't have diabetes, so I never did the diabetes solution kit diet. I never actually did it. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. So it takes a little bit of time. You have to read through it. You have to know what you're doing. And then you read through it again and you go, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to work this into my life. And then you read through it again. And, after a few months of thinking about it and mulling over it, I went to the store and I go, okay, um, I can eat this and I can eat that and I can eat that. And I just put everything in my basket that I could eat, and didn't put anything in that I couldn't eat. So I didn't, and normally I'm gonna have apples and oranges and stuff, and I didn't put any apples or oranges. I had avocados, and lettuce, and then I walked by the fish and I saw some shrimp, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I haven't had shrimp in a long time. I can eat shrimp, so I put shrimp in, and stuff like that. And then I took it home and I go, okay, this is how I'm going to eat now. And it was great and it worked out fine. But it's not something that you just all of a sudden do all at once and everything gets fixed. It's, think of it as a process, as a journey.
And it's also laid out in phases, and we know that phase one is the hardest because there's the most change there. Tell us a little bit about the maintenance phase.
So that would be phase 2. Well, phase 2 is when you're starting to introduce new things in.
Mhm.
So if you have type 2 and you want to go into the maintenance phase, a really easy way to do it now is you can get one of those continuous glucose monitors. So you put the CGM on, and then as you're adding things in, you're watching what's your blood sugar doing. And so I had somebody just yesterday who said, I don't get it. He was normal. His hemoglobin A1C came from 9 to 6 in only a couple of months. And it was everything was looking really good. And then he started eating, and his glucose monitor is going like 200, and it's going way out. And he's like, I don't get it. What's going on? And it was the things that he didn't tolerate, the carbs he didn't tolerate, and they're natural. It was beans, and stuff like that he wasn't tolerating. And we had somebody else actually on this program who wrote in and said, what's really weird is I can eat sourdough bread, but if I eat nachos, it shoots up sky high. Well, that's the continuous glucose monitor that's telling you very specifically, oh, I can tolerate sourdough bread. Okay, that's going to be part of my diet. Nachos, okay, that's out. Can't do that. So when you're going into the maintenance, it's so helpful to have that CGM. So you don't have to wait 3 months doing hemoglobin A1C and go, oh, I blew it somehow. Okay, now what? Okay, back to the drawing board. Start with phase 1. You don't have to start with phase 1 if you have a continuous glucose monitor. It makes it so nice.
Very true. And I was also thinking about how you were talking about when you put all those ingredients in your cart, the things you could eat. There's
Yeah.
some really good apps and things out there where you could put in recipe apps. Here's the ingredients I have, what can I make? And you could come up with some very, very good meals that maybe you just haven't thought about because you've never cooked a lot with shrimp or avocado or, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
There are options. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Saunders. We appreciate your time. Thanks for going over a little bit longer with us. Have a wonderful trip to
Thank you.
France. Safe
Yeah.
travels to you. We'll see you back in a couple weeks.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Thank you. And as we're wrapping things up here today, just a reminder that we will not be having the webinar next week because of some traveling going on, but you can always head on out to YouTube to our Barton Publishing webinar channel and rewatch previous webinars. Lots and lots of good ones out there. And you can, of course, join our Facebook group. We'll have some conversations going on out there. But our next live webinar will be on June 11th, and Cheryl will be hosting that one. And also on the 17th, we're going to be talking about exercise. So lots of good things coming up. Lots of
And
good.
you also mentioned we're going to have a discount for webinar attendees only.
Yes, Cheryl gets to share that one with you. So that will be a good one as well. So, all right. I do have anything else, Cheryl, that you have dropped in the chat or any explanations you need to give for anything?
No, just if you're here as someone new, take a step today. Don't wait. Don't
Mhm.
talk yourself out of anything. And we're not here just to sell. We really are just giving
No.
out a lot of free information. We have products available. Number one, try the diabetes solution kit. Start
Mhm.
there, really. It'll help.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a super low investment at 20 bucks and use the 25% off and get it for less. And yeah, definitely. There's some good recipes. There's a lot of different things in there. Lots of different things in there. All right, so I believe that is everything we have for you all today. We thank you so much for joining us. And if you are watching us on YouTube and you'd like to join us live, all you need to do is register at bartonwebinar.com and you'll get the emails sent to you from Zoom every week. And you can jump on here and ask questions and join us live. So we'd love to have you if that's where you are watching from right now. So join us live.
Yeah.
All right, Cheryl, you have a fabulous time next week.
We're going to be in Hawaii. Nothing beats
I'm looking forward to it. I'm finally going to have all my little chicks in order with me. All my kids will be together on we've been in, oh my word, 3 different time zones, 2 different continents for the last couple years. So I am looking forward to having everyone together and just spending some good time with them. So
Absolutely.
looking forward to it. All right, we'll see everybody.